In May 2021, the International Energy Agency, the IEA, did a scenario planning exercise. The planning exercise was a what-if exercise to determine what conditions would have to exist for the world to achieve net zero by 2050. One of these notional conditions that they put in their scenario planning exercise was that there would be no new oil fields and no new gas fields. Now, as a long-term reader of IEA reports, and I many years of reading these reports, I took these notional scenario planning conditions for what they were, just what-ifs to build up the scenario. However, others who were not used to reading IEA reports assumed that the IEA was saying there should be no new oil fields and no new gas fields. Matter of fact, that was published by some newspapers and is now popular belief. But it's not what the IEA thinks. The scenario planning exercise was part of the IEA lead up to COP26, which was held in Glasgow. And at that conference, both China and India said that they would not be carbon neutral until after 2050, and that meant that the international agreement on net zero by 2050 was not reached. Much more recently, on the 27th of January this year, at a meeting of the Council of Foreign Relations in New York City, Fatih Birol, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, said that he thought it was still worth pursuing the idea of net zero by 2050. But what he said then was that in addition to continuing investment in oil and gas, there needed to be an even greater investment in sustainable energy. Fatih Birol said, and I quote, "Investment for fossil fuels were about $1 trillion and investment for clean energy was about 1.4 trillion. Last year, 1.4 trillion for all clean and $1 trillion for fossil fuels. To be in line with our 1.5 degree goal, this ratio in 2050 needs to be 1 trillion of investment for fossil fuels and 9 trillion for clean energy." So the point being there is that the director of the International Energy Agency is saying this year that not only do we need $1 trillion of continuing investment in fossil fuels, that is to say, primarily in oil and gas, now we need it again and continue to need that every year until 2050. In an interview in Paris on the 23rd of June 2023, Fatih Birol noted that he thought in the second half of this year, global oil demand would be about 2.3 million barrels a day higher than global supply. He thought that meant that the oil market would become tight in the second half of the year. He also noted that he thought that European agents were too confident about the supply of natural gas that they had in storage going into the next winter. Yes, there was a lot of gas in storage, but the problem was that the availability of new LNG supplies to refill that storage in the coming winter was the lowest for many years. He said that should China grow faster than its current estimates, European countries would have difficulty getting enough supply to make it through the winter. This could cause natural gas prices to go back up to previous extremely high levels. Now, our job, though, or my job, is not to really analyse long-term patterns of investment, but to model short-term patterns in the price. And so I've constructed a model, which you'll be able to see these models in the video presentation, the video of this presentation. We've constructed a model which shows the relationship between the IEA data on global demand and supply and the resulting level of West Texas intermediate grade oil. We also have a separate model of Brent, but that's not the model we show here. The level of oil and demand for coming quarters is shown in Figure 1. And although the global oil supply has risen significantly from the beginning of 2021 to the final quarter of 2022, supply has moved sideways this year. And that's not what's happening to demand. The IEA tells us that there's an increase in demand of 61.2% for jet fuel and kerosene in China this year, and that will lift total world demand to 103.4 million barrels a day in the third quarter and 103.5 million barrels a day in the fourth quarter. So although demand improved, supply does not. The best available estimates drawn from the International Energy Agency reports of May and June suggest a supply going forward of 101.1 million barrels a day in the third and fourth quarter. So what we do in the chart, the second chart that you'll see with this presentation, is we show our IEA estimate model using that data to estimate the future price of West Texas Intermediate grade, and we estimate what the effect of this gap between supply and demand does. Now, currently the oil market is well supplied because there was a lot of increase in demand supply last year, and this has led to a softness in the price. Now, we believe this softness will continue for another quarter, that is to say into the third quarter of 2023. And our model estimate is that our model estimate falls from $77 for the second quarter to $73 in the third quarter. And that decline's already happened when I was writing this earlier in the week. The West Texas Intermediate grade was about $70 a barrel. In the final quarter, this price weakness comes to an end. As stocks fall in the final quarter, prices will rise. Our model estimates rises to $95 a barrel in the fourth quarter and $112 in the first quarter of 2024. This rises a little bit further to $113 a barrel in the second quarter of 2024. This tightness in the oil price will occur at the same time as Fatih Birol has suggested there will be a tightness in the LNG price. This escalation of energy prices in the first half of calendar 2024 is likely to take the market by surprise. The combination of both increases at the same time, that is to say increases in LNG prices at the same time as an increase in oil prices, may be greeted as the arrival of a new energy crisis.